Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us from. And thank you for joining us this WealthE Wednesday as we go through the 4-step wealth formula with Scott Picken and Chad Pope. Scott, as you know, is CEO and founder of Migrate, and Chad is a valued member of our community. He is one of our favorites people who is always willing to jump in and help. He's a wealth partner, an investor, an entrepreneur, a family man. He seems to do it all. So thank you guys for joining us tonight. We look forward to the webinar. As always, I am going to be here letting everybody know which questions are being asked and helping in the back end. So if you have questions, please pop them into the Q&A box or into the chat box, and I will see that most of your questions get answered. We love to know where our community is joining us from, so let us know where you are joining us from tonight or today. I am coming to you from Tamarindo in Costa Rica, which is on the Pacific Ocean side. I am very excited to be here amongst the howler monkeys and the sloths. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Scott and to Chad.
And having just put in an offer, Lisa, you're now like a resident of Costa Rica.
Lucky bum.
I am now applying because the place we've put an offer in is in Playa Negra. So I look forward to sharing that journey with our community in the coming weeks.
Awesome. Okay, well, listen, thanks very much to everyone. We're looking forward to a nice WealthE Wednesday. We had a good session at lunchtime. We've had a good couple of weeks with opportunities that have been on the platform, and equally we're going to be talking with Cashbox Global tonight, but we actually closed a note of theirs at the end of last week where people could participate. I do want to warn you up front, the fiber to my island has gone down and there's a massive storm outside, so I'm streaming through my cell phone. So if you lose me, I've been kind of stressing all afternoon trying to get it fixed, and it is what it is. So other than doing some sort of fancy dance, I'm not quite sure how to make my fiber work any better. But what we want to do, and really where the impetus came for this, was that I was doing some work with Shane on the Wealth University, and we got asked a question. We said, what is the number one thing that everyone in your community actually has in common? And we thought about it and we discussed a whole bunch of stuff, and it was actually Shane that came up with the concept that really we've all read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And without fail, you know, I've said that to a few people in the last month, and without fail, people shake their heads and they go, yep, that's 100% true. But what's really interesting is that I think when, you know, I read the book kind of 20 years ago, I'm going to show you just now, and, you know, Chad, I don't know when you read it and whatever, but I think the times have changed. I think the principles and the fundamentals are the same, but the methodology has changed. And so what we wanted to do tonight was to demystify the cash flow quadrant. We wanted to talk it through. And specifically people in the E and the S quadrant. And then what I wanted to do was I was going to share some formulas and frameworks that we've come up with, which are basically from copying. You know, they always say if you want to be successful, copy successful people. Copying successful people from all over the world, now people in 158 countries. And then also to share my own personal story. And then equally, as a case study, Chad very kindly said that he would also share. And I think that one of the things that's so valuable in life is that if it's not all just theory, it's actually practical and you can get to learn. So just very quickly, this was myself and Richard Branson. I had the privilege of going to Necker Island and spending an entire week with him. So this was me and him actually going kite surfing. I always tend to say to people that I like to be in the room where I'm the poorest, dumbest person. And I think I could safely say that in this case I was. But what's really interesting is that, you know, Richard Branson's a pretty wealthy guy, and I would consider myself a wealth hacker. So what is a hacker? So does anyone, before we get started, does anyone have an idea, and you can just chuck it in the chat box, of what a hacker is? Because I want to tell you a quick personal story before we get started. No one's going to venture a guess. So no, we had one homework example to turn up to Necker Island. Thank you for Sydney. Get things done faster. We had one homework thing when we went to Necker Island, and that was that there were 25 highly successful entrepreneurs, excluding me, that were on the island. And the one thing you had to do was to bring your life hack. So it was a way that you had made life easy for yourself, a way that you had, you know, got things done faster or whatever. And it was the most incredible thing because 25 successful people all brought their life hacks. And so for us, we want to kind of, start the momentum around wealth hacks, because what you're going to learn tonight is you could spend the next 20 years trying to figure this out all yourself. You could go and read the book and, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book, or you could just copy what other people are doing. And, I'd love to know what your gut feel is, Chad, but my gut feel is that you would probably be able to speed that up at least 4 or 5 times. What would take you 20 years, you could probably do in 4 or 5 years. And we could probably argue and arm wrestle all day long as to how long it would take, but I can safely say between 2 to 5 times faster if you copy and work with successful people. So before I go any further, I do want to say one thing. Tonight's going to be a lot about finances and planning and everything else. Neither Chad nor myself are financial advisors, and we're not giving you financial advice. And so neither Migrate nor Cashbox Global is trying to give you financial advice. All we're doing is sharing our knowledge and our understanding and our learning. Now, I don't normally bring that up front, but I think for the context of what we're talking about tonight and setting yourself up for success, it is very important that you understand that we're coming from our own unique places, our own unique experiences, and that although the formulas and the frameworks, in my opinion, are pretty standard, like the laws of nature, each and every one of us is an individual. So this is the book that most people have read, and my copy is looking a little bit worse for wear. It's actually fallen apart. And I actually found this, I read this just today. My mom and dad gave this to me on my birthday in 2001. So it's literally 20 years old. And we hope you make your fortune, but more importantly, we hope you have good health, many friends, and lots of happiness, lots of love, mom and dad. So that was my book. And we all learned around the concept of the cash flow quadrant. But what I wanted to do tonight was just go into this in a little bit more detail. So that's it in a little bit more color, okay? And I think a lot of people often kind of look at this and they go, oh, yeah. But I found a great little diagram, and I want to take each quadrant just quickly. So the E quadrant is the employee. You have a job, it's hard work, there's no security, and there's no time. And that's why the picture is a guy on the hamster wheel or even a little clock that's kind of doing what it has to do. The second part is the self-employed. Now, these are people that think that they have their own business. They might be an accountant or a doctor or a small business owner, and yet they actually work even harder than an employee. They have large debts, they have insufficient funds, and they have a huge amount of stress in their lives. And you can see a picture there of a doctor, or you can see a clock that's kind of going, absurd. And I think if you look at this left-hand side, it's really interesting because this is all about active income. So what that means is like you actually have to do something to get paid. And what's interesting is that 95% of people in the world are in this one of these two categories, and they only have 5% of the wealth. Then you've got the top right corner, which is the business owner. And this is where you've got you own a system and people actually are part of your team. It's easy work. And I'm not sure I'd agree with that, Chad, but anyway, we could debate that one. It's stability and it's spare time because, as Roger Hamilton teaches, your team becomes your time. And it's all about passive income. And really what's interesting is that the fourth quadrant is the investor. And that's where money works for you. You got no debts, you got plenty of money. It's all about freedom. The very word freedom is at the heart of it. And it only constitutes 5% of people. And I think that's been quite nice, quite frankly, in the world population, but it's 95% of the wealth. And so the question everyone has is how to get here. Because whether you're a beginner investor, whether you're an intermediate investor, or whether you're an advanced investor, even if you're a high net worth investor, they are still trying to figure out how to build a global diversified portfolio with multiple income streams of passive income, which we're going to talk about tonight, and ultimately become a global investor. So no matter which stage you're at, whether it's E, S, or B, every single one of you, all of us are trying to get to the I and to grow our I. Now, what's fascinating is that 20 years ago, I went out and read this book, okay? And literally 20 years, almost to the month. And I then went out and thought, okay, well, I need to go buy houses because that's what the book teaches. Like I was an employee at the time and I need to go buy houses. So I bought my first house in Cape Town, South Africa. And I remember it was a 5-bedroom house in Rondebosch. And ultimately I developed that into 6 townhouses. But what was interesting is that I was really learning. I had no deposit. I had to borrow money from my uncle. We got the mortgage. I had no management team or team full stop. and my brother was collecting the rent. And I remember the one month they didn't pay, and I was in London. This was in Cape Town, South Africa. And I said to my brother, please, can you go and, collect the rent? And he went like, brother, I'm a doctor, not a debt collector. So I started to learn very quickly about broken toilets, rent not being paid, and all the stuff that doesn't, in that book with Cash Flow Quadrant, doesn't make it sound nearly as hard as it actually was. Then 2 years later, I bought my first house in London. And this was the house here on the green in Wimbledon. And we turned a 3-bedroom house into a 5-bedroom house. And one thing I learned from both those examples is that there was a lot of hassle involved. It was difficult. It was very difficult, actually. But it was well worth it in terms of growing passive income. And what I realized over time, I then went and literally studied with everyone I could get my hands on, whether it was Dr. Hannes Dreyer to start off with in the early 2000s, that was all about risk and return and how to manage risk and how to focus on income, right through to Tony Robbins and the masters. There were 17 masters at his WealthE University that we went to, the WealthE Academy, actually, sorry, as to what he called it. And actually, the best learning I've ever had is by having helped thousands of investors in 158 countries. I started to learn and watch the patterns. And so what I think is really interesting is that although this sounds really hard and it sounds like a 20-year journey, from these 2 houses, I then went out and bought another 16 properties, all residential, houses or apartments. And quite frankly, they were very, very difficult to manage, especially when they were in different countries. So now you've got tax structures, bank accounts, management agents. And if you know me well, you'll know how horrendous I am at admin. So like often I wouldn't pay my rates and taxes, not because I didn't have the money, I just forgot. So it was difficult. I didn't want more hassle. And so I got a question for you. How many of you would like to know within 60 minutes how to finalize a personal plan to move from the employee or self-employed quadrant to the freedom of the investor quadrant as quickly, simply, and safely and predictably as possible, without being trapped by the financial industry, scammed, giving away your power to someone else, or adding additional stress or hassle in your life? So I'm fascinated. Is that something that appeals to you? Is that something that resonates to you? Because one of the feedbacks that I've had quite a lot of is that we've done quite a few courses, whether it's the 8 steps to wealth, micro degree, etc., the wealth GPS. And what a lot of people have come back to me is they said, Scott, there's so much information. I'm completely overwhelmed. And quite frankly, I don't have 8 or 9 hours to watch it all. So can you condense it? So Shane set me a challenge and he said, right, can you do this in less than 60 minutes? And I actually said, I can. And in fact, tonight I'm going to do it in less than 10 minutes because I'm just going to show you the principle tonight. And then I'm going to share with you how you can do this within 60 minutes. So there's 4 steps to the wealth formula. The first one is you need to figure out what you want in terms of cash flow. I want to be very clear here. There's 2 ways of doing this. You can figure out how much capital you want, or you can figure out how much cash flow you want. What's interesting is that on your balance sheet, you can literally have $100 million in assets. But if you don't have any cash flow, you're dead. Like you can't buy bread and milk with like shares, or with the fact you own some property. So actually, in my opinion, how much capital you've got on your balance sheet is less important to how much cash flow you've got, passive income cash flow. That's the first and most important principle I learned. The second one is once you figure out how much cash flow you need, then you have to figure out how much capital you need based on the return, the average cash on cash return. So it's literally a seesaw, and I'm going to explain this to you. There's literally only 3 things you put into the equation. The third is you need a plan. Then you need to figure out how much you're going to invest per month and for how long to achieve your outcome. And the fourth is that you stick to the plan. So you stick to the formula, you measure, you track, and you keep going. And so let me share with you just very quickly on a spreadsheet. So let's go back to those 4 steps. So tonight I'm going to do myself. And the beauty is that I'm going to share with you later how you can get access to these, what we call the freedom calculator. Okay, so there's 2 ways of doing it. And the traditional way looks a little bit more like this. And you sit down with your financial planner and they go, how much money do you want? And you've got your children and money for retirement and your one child's wedding and your second child's wedding. You add it all up and you kind of get to a capital amount. And then there's all these goals and how many years you want to go for and your countdown and everything else. And then they kind of compare whether you invest in an institution or whether you invest in a global real estate portfolio. And it basically gives you a whole bunch of metrics. So this is a freedom calculator we built. And if you want to do it I'm going to call it the financial industry way, you can do it that way, which is how much capital do you need and work backwards. My recommendation is that I actually prefer the simplistic way. And I learned this the hard way, but it's better to be simple. So for me, how much cash flow do I need? So right now in today's money, in my opinion, to be a global citizen, a passive income of $15,000 will ultimately allow you to live pretty comfortably in England, Australia, America, and by that token, South Africa. Now I always joke, you're not going to be flying a private jet. You're probably not going to be flying business class or first class, but you're going to live pretty comfortably. And so for me, that is my idea of a base threshold of a global citizen. So if I look at that, okay, $15,000, and if I can get a net cash on cash return of 8%, so that's 8% a year, I then need $180,000 a year net after tax. You with me so far? Which means that I would require $2.25 million. Okay. Now we can get into a whole bunch of more complicated things around inflation and currency conversions and etc. For tonight, there's actually 27 variables that go into internal rate of return. And that's why my courses are normally 8 or 9 hours, because you go into all the detail. So in the context of keeping it to 10 minutes, I'm keeping it simple. And that KISS formula, keep it simple, stupid, is that, really the accuracy is going to be probably 90% plus in terms of what you want. So what's really important is that you can then see I need about 2.2 million in capital. Now, what's interesting is a bunch of people out there will go, 2.2 million is impossible. I'm never going to get there. So let's just say hypothetically, you want to go and you can play around with this. You want, I don't know, $3,000. Okay. Well, now you need 450,000 in capital. Okay. I'm going to go back to the 15 because I think we should all be aiming to be global citizens. The next thing you do is you go in and you work it out. So if I can invest, let's just say $1,000, okay, at 6%. So I'm talking, if I put my money in a bank account, and to be honest, I'm being hell of aggressive. Let's say it's a South African bank account, but if I'm getting 6% from the bank and I'm losing 5% on devaluation. But anyway, let's just say I can get 6% for 20 years. I am going to get, in future value, 464,000. After tax, it's 325, which means I'm nowhere near to my goal. See the goal? Okay, so the internal rate of return takes both the cash flow and the capital growth into account. If I'm getting about 15%, you can see now that over 20 years, so remember it's a seesaw. It's what is the growth, what is the term, and how much am I putting in per month? That's it. Those are the only three things you work out. And you can see that I'm about $1 million. So by the age of, I'm 44 now, so by the age of 64, I still wouldn't be at my goal. And if I can get a higher internal rate of return over the same time, I now hit my goal. Okay, so that's interesting. Okay, so now you look at it, and I guarantee you there's still people in this room going, hang on, but like they got their foot in the mouth because they are going, oh, that doesn't sound possible. $1,000, 20 years, even those returns, they're quite high. So if you look here, we figured out how much cash flow you want, and now we figured out the formula. So based on the formula, how much capital would you need based on the average cash on cash? So we did that as point 2. Point 3, we're now figuring out the plan. Okay. And what's actually interesting, and again, I'm going to share these spreadsheets so you can go and do this yourself. You can go and play around with the numbers because it's really not that complicated. You can go in and say, okay, well, if I put in 2% or 20 years or 30 years or 10 years, but I put in 4,000. And then what I did, interesting enough, and Chad and I know Andrew's online here, we're all at an event with Ann Wilson in March last year, just before COVID. And I thought to myself, what's interesting is how many people consistently put in $1,000 for 20 years. You don't do that because your ability to earn more income, your ability to add more value to more people will go up. And so rather than saying, well, I don't have $1,000 and not starting at all, how many people could start with $100? And what I actually did was, if you took an average of 15% growth, which it's not aggressive and it's not aggressive. It's like perfectly in the middle, like, you know, kind of between 12 to 17, 18% is kind of the range for IRR on our platforms, which means 15 is kind of dead in the middle. And you do $100 per month for 20 years. You'll actually see that I worked out the future value and then the after-tax value. Okay, but what was interesting is that if you do that and you increase each year, so in year one, it's $100. In year two, you add that to $200. In year three, $300. And it never gets more than $500 that you're actually adding. So like for me now, okay, like I'm in this stage now where I'm looking to do like in this sort of range per month, okay? What that means is that I'll easily hit my formula over 20 years and I'll easily hit my passive income score, okay? So what this is a plan, okay? Now, if you go back to this presentation here, is that then it's just about sticking to the plan. So you basically, what I've learned is that in the same way as losing weight, most people like, you know, eat the chocolate because they don't immediately put on 2 kilos onto their stomach. And then they put on more weight and put on more weight. It's the same with investing, is that you don't get the gratification right up front. But what is very valuable is when you do these future-proofing exercises, and to be fair, I learned this from Dr. Hunt Australia. When you do the future-proofing exercises, then it gives you a goal. Then it's much easier to stick to the $100 per month. Much easier, because now there's a plan. And as long as I stick to the plan, I'm going to get to my outcome. And so I just want to check the time there. That's it. That's the 4-step formula. And what I'm going to share with you is we're going to go into more detail. I'm actually going to do a recording of this. We're going to share the calculator so that you can go and do it. But for tonight, I wanted to demystify the Robert Kiyosaki cash flow quadrant, because what happened to me was I was buying up these houses, as I said to you, and they were quite frankly a pain in the ass. And then I started investing on the Wealth Migrate platform, and I started investing in commercial deals where I wasn't doing the whole deal. I wasn't setting up the structure. I wasn't managing the bank account. I wasn't doing the rates and taxes. I wasn't collecting the rent. I literally was going on the platform and investing. And I was getting cash on cash returns of 8%, which we've already said. The IRRs of, depending on the deal, between probably 20% might be a bit aggressive. Let's say 13 to 17, 15 being the average. And, you know, whether it was medical buildings in Atlanta or medical buildings in Texas, whether it was residential opportunities, but not one apartment, but the whole building in London or England. If it's we've done a development and an industrial building in Australia, and even in South Africa, there's been very good cash on cash returns. And what I started to realize was that when I went and did my maths over the last 20 years, my platform investments were getting me a far better return than my own houses were. And my own houses had much more hassle. So like I sat there going, well, hang on, like this one's got all this hassle and a lower return, and this one's got a higher return with less hassle. And really for me, that's when I started selling off, and I've sold off every single one of those houses now, bar the house, the family home, and to put everything into the platform. Now, why do I share that with you? That for me is the fundamental shift that's happened in the last 20 years. Because 20 years ago, Robert Kiyosaki told you, go out and buy a house. You walk the streets and you went and bought a house. Okay. Nowadays, in the last week, I've invested in a deal in Portugal. And I'm going to show you how to do this. And I've invested in a structured note with Cashbox Global, which is a different type of asset class. All on the platform, all managed in one place. And it just made my life so much easier. And the nice thing is that this is the first time you're on and looking at who Wealth Migrate is. You're not alone. You know, there's members in 158 other countries. We've done over $100 million through the platform. We've paid out over $12 million in dividends. And equally, some people hear the $100 and they think that's all we do. Well, the average investment size is just short of $37,000. So we help everyone from $100, you know, and we've had many investors invest north of $1 million. So why is this important? Well, if you look here, you've got like an equity deal on, which is in Portugal. So you've got John Raby, where you, rather than buying a retail unit from John Raby, you can actually now partner with him in a deal in Portugal alongside him. And or you've got structured notes. And we're gonna talk about this a bit more. And by the way, we did a great webinar on Freedom Day with Chad and Andrew, if you want to understand structured notes better, because tonight's essence is about the cash flow quadrant, not just structured notes. But what I wanted to share with you is that if I go in here very quickly, okay, and I log in, so you should be seeing me live now. Okay, and again, Rich Dad Poor Dad, you know, I know that Dolph DeRuis, who wrote Real Estate Riches and was part of this series, said that you had to make an offer on 100 houses. Do you have any idea how long it takes to walk the streets and make an offer on 100 houses, and then set up a structure, and then bank account, and then manage it, and renovate, and paint, and broken toilets, and everything in between? So, you know, here you can go on the platform, and you can go and you can see there's a hybrid deal, which is equity and mezz. There's an equity deal in terms of what you're doing. So, and you can go in and you can look at alternative investments. So we've done 2 structured notes with Cashbox Global. One was a US tech, and the other one was a car manufacturer. Now, I'm not going to try and sound like an expert. Okay, I'll let Chad and Andrew sound like the expert. But a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago now, Chad came to me and said, listen, you know, wealthy people invest in structured notes. And I was like, never heard of a structured note. Why have I not heard of a structured note? Well, I'm very proud to say now, I've not only invested in commercial buildings in America or England or Australia, South Africa, but I've now also invested in structured notes, which make me look very clever because, you know, I didn't know what that was 2 years ago. But the beauty is that what are we doing coming back to the formula? It's about building passive income streams. It's about sticking to the very formula that we've just spoken about. And so if I literally go in, I can't go into either one of these deals. This one we closed last week. It closed within 24 hours. So the only advice that I can have to people, and we've got another one coming, it just got approved by our investment committee today. But I mean, these things close in like 2 weeks, tops. Okay, so you don't have time to like move your money and think about it whenever. If you like the concept, you need to KYC yourself, you need to verify, you need to fund your wallet, because that's done. You can't go in now and invest in this deal. But just by the way, this had a cash on cash return north of 12.5%. Okay, now I just want to show you something very quickly here. Okay, let's go back to our little formula and let's just make that 12%. Ooh, what's happened to my maths there? Something's gone wrong. Oh, there. Got to update my formula. Do you see, you've suddenly just wiped off $700,000 or $800,000. Just a cool calm collected 10 million Rand if you're in South Africa, by just changing the cash on cash return. Now, I personally wouldn't make that 12, because you're going to get some that'll be slightly higher, and you're going to get some that'll be slightly lower. You're going to get some that'll be higher capital growth, and you'll get some that, you know, will be lower capital growth. So it's a blend, it's a balance, okay, is what I think is important. But if I go back here, sorry, actually back to the platform, and I say, okay, so this is a great one. And by the way, I think, Chad, we can talk to a little bit, but I think the one coming is like cash on cash of like 20% plus. It still blows my mind, but you know, so I'm just trying to say to people, it's available, it's there. You know, don't tell me that you can't do this anymore. You can. And actually, if you don't do it, you know, the only person that you need to blame is yourself, because 20 years ago, you had to go out and buy a house, you had to get a mortgage, you had to have a deposit. I agree with all that stuff. Nowadays, you know, I don't believe it's got the excuse. So one last thing quickly, let's go back here quickly. And I'm going to go back to real estate, and I want to go to this Marvilla deal. I can invest from $100. Tonight, I can literally get started from $100. I go in, I got my different structures. You can see all my wallets up the top here. My wallets are being funded. I can go in and read through the deal. I can see it's with reward. It's, by the way, it's John Robbie, the guy that built Century City. I can go and see the risk category. It's a new development, so it's opportunistic. I can read about the market summary, the investment summary. I can go do a return. How cool is this? Aren't you irritated with the financial industry where you never know how many fees you're paying and they're all hidden on page 26? You can literally go and you can see exactly what you're getting, what your returns are, what your outcome is, your cash on cash return, your average IRR. You can see everything, basically. It's all here, completely transparently. Oh, have I still got you guys?
Yep.
Sorry, my laptop speed, as I said. Sponsors, and then the due diligence. Go and read about who's doing the due diligence, how it's all working. So you can go read the documentation, you can read all the risks, and you can look at the milestones. Now, let's assume I like this deal. I literally want to go in and I want to invest from $100. Okay. I basically come in, you can see the fees I'm investing, and I go continue. I literally click on the different, I go and read all the material, obviously, download it and read it. I go agree, and I go make investment. And you've just witnessed me invest in Portugal in under 30 seconds. Okay, now you have to have KYC and you have to have funded your wallet. But other than that, you've just witnessed me invest in Portugal in under 30 seconds. So why is this relevant? Well, what you're hearing tonight is really a way to be able to do this. Now, we're going to, sorry guys, my internet keeps stopping, which is kicking my emails out. I'm going to hand over to Chad now, and we're going to share, Chad's going to share his story and his kind of experience and how he's done this. And when he's done, I'm going to share with you literally how you can get a recording. We're going to be making a 60-minute, like literally 60-minute course on the 4-step wealth formula, how to move from the ENS quadrant as quickly, simply, and safely and predictably as possible using technology. This is the key, because before this conversation wasn't, I'd just sell you a copy of this book and you'd be good, and asset classes like real estate or structured notes. Then we're going to give you a copy of the Freedom Calculator to help you determine what amount you would have to make, feel financially free, and give you the freedom you desire. We're going to give you a wealth plan. You actually saw the wealth plan that I sort of put together, but it's a little bit more formalized. What's your plan? What are you starting out with? How much are you putting in per month for the first year? What are you looking to do in year 2? And how many years are you looking to do it for? It's literally that simple. And then you stick to your plan. There's an investor test. So I learned this from Roger Hamilton. And what's really interesting is that Shane's helped me build this out. And I don't know, Chad, if you've even seen this, where it's completely interactive now, the investor test. So rather than just getting a PDF, it's completely interactive. So every single one of us gets a personalized path to wealth. So if you're a beginner, it'll send you down one road. If you're intermediate, it'll send you down another road. If you're advanced, it'll send you down another road. But what's beautiful is that those are the 3 categories, but there's actually 5 different areas. And depending on where you are in all 5 of those, will send you down a different road. So no one person, no 2 people will go on the same route. So it's an interactive guide, and it's actually launching, and it's all about the hacks. It's hacking your way to success to be able to get there. So you can literally save decades of frustration. Now, I don't know about you, Chad, but for me personally, and I'm sure you're about to share this, I've spent more than 2 decades trying to understand the space. And I wish I was in my early 20s where I had the opportunity to hack my way and to learn these things quickly, or even like Warren Buffett, where he started at 13. And then finally, why we are going to be, with our community, we're going to be basically creating the Wealth Hacker community, where basically people around the world that are looking to take control of their financial lives and share wealth hacks, So we're about to share, I've shared with you my wealth hack. I want to hand over to another wealth hacker. And I had the privilege of meeting Chad and his wife, Peter Lynn, back in 2010, 2011, when they started investing offshore. In those days, it was Australia. Chad has been through the whole ES quadrant. I'll let him explain it, but was an entrepreneur and then became a business owner. But the whole time was trying to follow, as I understand it, the formula for cash flow quadrant, because he was investing the whole time from a passive income perspective. He came to America, and I hazard a guess on 2014, 2015. I don't know exactly. Started investing in the commercial buildings in America. So now you had Australia, South Africa, and America. And then equally around the same time, as I understand it, met Andrew and got introduced to structured notes, which was another passive income vehicle, and tested it himself for the best part of 4 or 5 years before they formed Cashflux Global, which what I'm so excited about is that what I'm sharing with you tonight is you can invest in commercial real estate in America, England, Australia. I mean, we just approved a partner, by the way, Chad, I'm super excited about this, that does industrial buildings with tenants like Amazon, logistics and stuff, so really, really exciting. And my point being is that you want different asset classes, you want things like real estate, but you also want structured notes. And so without further ado, I wanted to hand over to you, Chad, where you could also share your story, because I think people resonate with stories and learn from stories. And so I'm going to stop sharing here and pass over to you. What's your take on the cash flow quadrant and what you've learned and how you've implemented it yourself?
Of course, Scott, thanks very much. It's lovely to spend time with you and the community. So I'm very glad to share. Grab my screen. So I wanted to give a big shout out to Robert Kiyosaki. I'd love to meet the man. 1997, his book came out. I see there 32 million copies sold worldwide. I don't know about all his digital stuff. But here's a man, I think, Scott, that's probably changed 32 million families and families of families. Incredible story. And this came out 2 years after I got married, and my wife and I just bought a house. We've gotten into a residential rental property quite by accident. And once I read this book, I was hooked. I started to devour all the material that he could get. And I think, just after we discussed this and giving this some thought, it was really trying to find a community and to understand how finances work. So I grew up in a house full of love and care and attention and all that, but we hardly ever spoke about money. And for me, this was a large relief. And as a person who likes to analyze stuff, really started to work this. And so we built up a bit of a property portfolio with exactly what Robert's outlook was. And that's a wealthy person, or perhaps a financially free person, is someone who's learned how to make money when they're not working. Really resonated. So we got started with this journey. And I had this conversation with my children probably from the age of around 7 after understanding this. And, if I was to plant a single fruit tree, this fruit tree could be an income generating asset. And if you just start with the first tree today, over a period of time, it's going to keep growing, right? And I'm fully aware that probably people on this chat tonight, Scott, are well ahead of me in terms of experience and understanding. And there's people that are starting out. So, maybe the discussion is somewhere in between, and maybe my journey and what I've experienced resonates. And in this conversation, we actually created a little black book for my kids, and we called it the money tree. And we started depositing and putting money away for our kids, and it had compound. So they had a book that could grow. And ideally, I guess the analogy is quite simple. If I could start to plant an orchard, and I could plant a variety of different trees, maybe that would produce stuff over different seasons. So I could start to average my flow, and we started to equate that to money, and I think my kids got it. And I think they're at a very different position, different level of understanding right now. The quality of the tree and the maintenance thereof is what produces the fruit. And Scott, I think the stuff that you've done through Wealth Migrate is fantastic in terms of the variety of trees that you're planting, in terms of residential, commercial, medical, aged care, structured notes, etc. There's the most amazing products that are living in there, and they're safe, they're well looked after in a proper platform. It's the right way to go. And then when you have a look at this, the plan that you were suggesting is actually slow and steady. Scott, it's even boring. And, we've just come off 4 weeks with Roger Hamilton on an investor summit, and there's some really spicy stuff out there. I'm not that guy. I want to make sure that loss doesn't come. So in your table that you produced just now, there was no zeros, right? It was 15% every year. Watch the losses.
Buffett says rule number 1 is don't lose capital. Rule number 2 is refer to rule number 1.
Yeah, don't even do it. So what I'll do, I'll stick this in the chat group just now. There's a 3-minute video, a guy called Chamath, and he chats around the slow compounding growth. And it's amazing. You can compound yourself to freedom. There's no need to take risk.
Chad, I just want to add to that, if you don't mind. There were 2 people, Dr. Anastraya and my uncle. And then in time, they were the 2 that I first noticed the pattern. And then in time, I noticed it over and over again, where it's actually exactly what you say. Like they figure out a formula that works, they stick to it, and it's actually boring, but it just works over and over again.
Yeah. And I'd rather have boring and steady and predictable than the roller coaster. Yes, I've got growth stuff in my portfolio for sure, but I'm not going to bet the farm on that stuff. So the flow, if you just follow the flow of cash, right, it's very simple. If you go and create assets, real estate, stocks, all the good stuff that you were chatting about, and those were producing an income, and I took the income back into my particular income stream, and I managed my expenses, I've got some leftover cash to go again. And then this is exactly how those that are financially free invest. Take your returns, bring them back to income, and just keep going. Drive up your assets to drive up your income, and manage your expenses. Don't have to be a pauper, just manage those carefully. Keep your liabilities controlled. And for those of you new to it, there's obviously good debt and bad debt. There's ways to leverage up properties and go faster. And then there's also time maybe where you don't want to and do something a lot simpler. I've also journeyed down the route of owning my own stuff, and the expenses just ran away. I've even had bank accounts closed in America, for example. This was a nightmare. One single platform is a whole lot easier. So build your income generating assets and manage your costs. It's as boring as that. So the other thing I would encourage you to do, and I'm so glad you read and shared from your book, Scott. Your parents, I think, did exactly the right thing. You know, wealth is one component of your life. And if you follow your flow, it doesn't matter if you're an employee, it doesn't matter if you're self-employed, it doesn't matter if you're a business owner, but put something away into an investment pot every month, slow and steady. But go and do what your flow is. Go and find your passion. So the meaning of life is to find your gift. And by that, they mean purpose, the way you can contribute. And the purpose of life, I love this, is to give it away. So if you in your flow, perhaps you're a singer, sing. If you are a business person, do the most amazing business stuff, my belief. Because if you're doing your flow, money will come because the world will reward you for what you give back to it. And then take portion of that and keep investing. So build your skills, build your experience, find your passion, and deliver on what the world needs. And success, folks, is happiness. Scott, I think that was the message in your book. It's a lovely, lovely thing to share. Thank you. Yes, there are a lot more efficient ways to invest. So for example, our properties, we put into a business, we created a property business in order to manage taxes and the likes. Each of these are their own subjects. And we accelerated that by starting equipment rental businesses, for example, anything to generate flows. And of course, we took from the top and then dropped it back into this investor quadrant, making sure that this built up over time, and then put it into some sort of vehicle that's safe. I lifted this concept of Roger Hamilton that Scott was chatting about from the Entrepreneur Institute, and I love this. And what this is if you have an arrow on its own is pretty useless. But if I was to point an arrow at what I want and understood why I wanted it, I need to give this thing energy, and I'll power this through a bow. And this bow has two sides to it. It's how I'm going to do this, who I'm going to do it with. And I will give this thing momentum, I'll give it direction, and I'll release the arrow. And ideally, I'm going to release several arrows at what I'm after. So if I understand what I want, if I understand why I want it, if I understand who I'm going to do this with, how I'm going to get this thing done, and when, and I can put this into an efficient system, I've got the start of a plan. So if you were to look at the Wealth Migrate platform, for example, this is the system. The arrows, if you like, could well be the properties that you're looking after, that you're interested in investing in. Why do I want to do it? And here I can now couple with probably some of the best people in the world. What's on the platform now is the best possible products that Wealth Migrate can find. And that's through years and years of experience. So Andrew, that Scott's talking about, has been designing these structured notes that we're on about for the last 20 odd years. That skill comes to you straight away. So Scott, you asked me a question a little while ago. Now, how long did it take me to find, to invest in medical property? Well, it took me 20 years because it wasn't available before you made it available, before it was on this marketplace. So I would encourage everybody to do this in every area of their life. Health, wealth, you name it. Understand what it is, why you want it, who you're going to go with, and how you're going to do it. And again, it could be a steady, boring plan, but let's get on with it. And then the part that really resonated with me, Robert Kiyosaki spoke about day work. And this day work is what I go out and do every day. I could be running my business. Scott, when you said a business owner has time on his hands and he doesn't work too hard, well, I don't think so. I certainly started the wrong businesses then. I've worked my ass off.
Yeah, on that point, I hear you. That's why I was still reading it going, that doesn't make sense to me.
So go and do your day work. work within your flow, work within your passion, but then for goodness sake, do your homework. And your homework is investing in yourself, invest in your understanding. So if it is that it's financial freedom you're after, go and devour all the books, join communities like Wealth Migrate, because that's where you're going to learn, and you're going to learn from the who. The same could be said of your career. It could be of your health, it could be family, etc. Do your homework and do your day work. But for goodness sake, start investing, because you've seen the power of compounding. So I think, just about in summary, I just need to move this out the way because I forgot what Albert said exactly, but compound is the eighth wonder of the world, and this is compound interest, of course. He who understands it earns it, and I love this. He who doesn't pays it. Don't be the guy that pays it. So I think in a nutshell, I think everybody can compound their way to financial freedom. The trick is to start. And then you've got to be in an environment where you protect your income and you protect your capital. So where this is stored, the platforms of portfolios that you manage are terribly important. And then this is the part that I really like about the Wealth Migrate products. Go direct to source, because it's the middleman that gobbles up all the income, the cost, and the returns. We don't want that, because that also actually adds in another layer of risk. So yeah, I'd love to meet Robert, because he set me off on a journey. That first book really got me going. And I gave the book to my kids as a gift, because I think it's important. And Scott, thanks very much for what you've done for the community. I love being part of it. And I'm glad we found a product we've put on and contribute to the community with. So thanks for that opportunity.
Oh, awesome. And Chad, just quickly, before you, sorry, just take your slide back there quickly before we end. Yeah, that one, sorry, the last slide, yeah. Directly from source where possible. Just to give you an example there. So I'd never heard of a structured note before. And, you know, if I go to a bank and I get a return, depending on the country, but, you know, I'll probably be getting somewhere from, I don't know, 2 to 6%, you know, depending on the country. And Chad came along and he was like, no, we're getting, you know, quarterly returns of kind of 2 to 3%. And I was like, what? That doesn't sound like, it sounds too good to be true. And, you know, I've worked with Chad for a long time, and I remember sitting with Andrew and like really trying to understand this. And really the simplest way to describe it was that you've got 3 levels of banking. You've got kind of institutional banking, you've got wholesale banking, you've got retail banking. And you and me and everyone else are getting the retail products, which are laden with middlemen and fees. And that's why they're paying us kind of whatever, 2 to 6%. Then you kind of got wholesale banking, and then you've got institutional banking. The problem with institutional is that you need to be able to act quickly, and you need to put together, you know, a couple of $1 million plus to be taken seriously. And so what's fascinating, sorry, we're seeing you jumping around there. Are you bringing it up for us quickly?
Yeah, I thought I'd help you quickly.
Yeah, perfect. And what's really interesting, thanks Chad for bringing this up, and it's such a valuable thing to show how you cut out the middleman, is that, you know, the reason you can now get cash on cash returns of 12% in first world currencies is because you're cutting out all the middlemen, and you're now literally investing like an institution, even if you're investing with $100, just to put it in perspective, you know. So, and that's the power of technology, because it brings everyone together. I don't know if you just want to talk to this, because, you know, whether it's a structured note or whether it's a medical building, it's exactly the same thing, or an industrial building, because, you know, previously you'd put your money in a REIT, a real estate investment trust, or a property fund. There'd be multiple layers of people, multiple layers of fees, and then you wonder why the returns are not that good. It's because of all the middlemen and all the fees. You cut them all out and go direct to source. That's when you get the competitive returns.
Yeah. So Scott, thanks for that. I think we're all used to the high street bank and the business bank, and they exist for transactional banking, and would probably give us in hard currency near zero for any cash in the bank. Investment banks exist for big institutions. They'll create products for pension funds, for trusts, and in fact, even for the banks below this in some cases. So in order to attract these fancy deposits, the investment bank would structure contracts, actually underwrite the contract. And can you believe it? What they do is they put in 3 or 4 stocks into this, and they say, we'll put in protection here that even if those 3 shares or stocks drop by as much as 50%, we are still going to pay your quarterly income. where in the world do you go to a high street bank today and get a product that they're going to guarantee, even if the market drops by 50%? Pension funds, investment houses, family offices, this is where they go and invest. And once I got to see this, and Andrew opened my eyes to all of this, we said, look, we've got to help the community. And all we've done, Scott, we haven't reinvented the wheel. We've just taken good people right to the source of predictable and protected income streams. It's existed for 20 odd years. We were just never invited.
Yeah. No, it's brilliant, and it ties in with your slide, and that's why I just wanted to show it, because so what you really experience now, and if you don't mind, I'm just going to steal the screen back, but what you've really experienced now is you've seen two different people tell their story, a 20-year story, both of us having read the book, both of us having tried to implement it, and both of us having realized in the last 5 years or more how much easier this can actually be from a technology perspective, which now allows everyone to participate. So, you know, what I wanted to share with you, and there are some questions which we'll come back to, but I wanted to share with you what the next steps are. So the first one is that if you're interested in what we're launching with the Wealth University 5.0, we've got a webinar. It's the 27th of May at 6 p.m. UK time, 7 p.m. South African time. And just by the way, there is a link, and you can go into the link. Lee, if you wouldn't mind just putting in the chat box, or actually I'll just put it in the chat box quickly for everybody. You can see it. You can see it there. Oh, what am I doing wrong? Okay, there, I'll put it in the link for everyone. And what's interesting is this will just keep you updated what's happening. It's going to be a full-on online platform. So as a wealth hacker, you want to be able to connect. If I've learned one thing about education and community, it's about working together. You know, there's no point in figuring all this stuff out. Chad learned about structured notes. Chad taught me. Fantastic. Now we're teaching others. Brilliant. You know, it's just the way it should be. You get to learn together, you know, but it's hyper learning. You know, you do so much better when you're learning. Like, people can read about Bitcoin or they can invest in Bitcoin. Trust me, they're a lot more engaged when they own something. It's the same with the commercial building, same with structured notes, etc. You can engage with people. It's all about the community and the conversation. It's all mobile, so it's all on your in your pocket basically. And you can go and you'll get access to the calculators. You can go and watch a video here on what the university platform is going to look like. You can go and see our Wealth Pro calculator. So we've got the Freedom Calculator, which is the simple 4 steps for Scott getting into trouble for talking too much. And then actually, Chad, you spoke about purpose. I'm off to Jordan in 2 weeks' time to work with a guy, Alexandra Inchbolt. I don't know if you've spent time with him through Roger as well. And he basically focuses, his passion in life is to help people find their purpose. And he's going to, I'm going to do a personal development course with him for 4 days in Jordan. But he's also agreed to offer his product to people that sign up for the Wealth University 5.0. So
Nice.
the reason I'm sharing that is that the purpose tonight was to show you what to do and not to leave you hanging. You can go read the book, you can figure it all out yourself, or you can hack your way there and basically copy. If you're an Inner Circle member, look out for the community special and early access. As I understand it, Shane and the team are going to be sharing with you so you can go and play around before it even opens on the 27th of May, which is quite exciting. I know, Lee, you and I were blown away by it when we saw it last time. Go on the platform. You know, I'm giving you a sneak preview. There's another structured note coming, and I don't want to like tell you about the cash on cash returns, but I saw the thing today. I'm in the investment committee, and it's north of 20%. Okay, now don't get me wrong. It's called a growth product. It has more risks, you know, blah, blah, blah. You got to understand it, etc. But don't come in 2 weeks and whinge when Chad and Andrew say, sorry, it's full. I couldn't get in. Like, if you're interested, go on the platform, do your KYC, fund your wallet. The reason I could invest $100 tonight like that is because I'm fully KYC'd and my wallet is funded. So, you know, if I've learned one thing about wealthy people, it's get proactive. Don't be reactive. And lastly, get started. Okay, so, you know, Chad, you mentioned it. And I think that hopefully tonight, if nothing else, of what we wanted to achieve, both from Chad's story, our story, is just get started. Start with $100. Get started. Like, you'll be amazed how the momentum starts to build once you start to build your own confidence. And it's what I wanted to end off with, because I've shared so many times the 6 things investors need. So the first one is belief. What's interesting is that if you're sitting on this webinar and you're going, that's for other people, or I didn't go to a good enough school, or my parents weren't wealthy, or whatever, whatever your story is, I think, therefore I am. It's your belief that's going to determine whether you will succeed or won't succeed. Okay, so you've got to work on your belief. And there's, again, in that test, as an example, a book like Think and Grow Rich, and there's some great things you can do around your belief. No matter what your belief is, you can fix it. The second is knowledge. Okay, you need knowledge. The third is access and investment. So it's all good and well to have the belief and the knowledge, but unless you have access to structured notes or commercial property, you invest, you're going nowhere. Otherwise, you're just going to be another professor who has a lot of information and doesn't do anything with it. The fourth is a system. Now, whether you use our system, whether you use the spreadsheets I've shared with you, whether you go create your own system, I don't care. But I can promise you that wealthy, successful people have a system. We just like to think that we've automated the system and made it easy for people. The fourth is you need support and accountability. If you think you're going to do it all on yourself, well, good luck to you, but it ain't going to happen. And again, it can happen so much faster when you've got support, you're part of a community, you've got accountability, whether you're holding yourself to account, you're going to be far more productive if you're accountable to a mastermind or a group or a community. And then ultimately, it's about success. And what does success mean? Well, success equals results, results equal wealth. And ultimately, for me, the most important thing, what I'm passionate about, is getting people freedom. Now, I got a question for you, Lee, specifically. There's 6 steps to this little formula. Do you think it ends there?
Absolutely not. You've got to keep going on it. You've got to keep building. This is just the framework and the launching pad to get you to where you need to go.
Exactly. And I think, Sean very kindly made this for me, because my previous slide, I think people thought it was a straight line and you start and you stop. It's not. It's an ongoing cycle, because once you get success, you're going to get more belief, you're going to get more knowledge, you're going to have to get more access, blah, blah, blah. And it just goes. Now, just by the way, this spiral can go up. It can also go down. If you have no belief and you don't take action, you're not going to get results. That's just going to get worse and worse, and you'll end up in the poverty trap that everyone else does. Or you can start, but you get to choose. Do you go up or do you go down? It's your choice in terms of it. So I wanted to share a bit of humor. Okay. And we're pretty much on the hour. So if you bear with me for 2 minutes with a bit of humor, but everyone always says to me, yeah, this sounds so complicated and I don't know where to get started. And must I go read the book, or should I go on a course, or should I attend Roger's webinar tomorrow, or should blah, 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 blah. And the way I say is, every single one of you that is watching this recording, learn to walk. Okay. And you probably learn to walk quite similar to this.
Can you walk? Can you standing and
this is how to teach your baby to walk.
That might be you and your financial planner when you fell over. I found this video, which I thought was a bit of humor, just to finish off with.
Basically, before a baby can walk, you need to teach it how to run. So just pick your baby up, grab by the hands, start running. Once you've taught your baby to run, they'll be ready to walk. Just place them down and come on, come on.
So maybe tonight we've had a bit of fun and we've showed you how to hack your own walk so that you can learn to walk, and maybe you can learn to run pretty quickly. We all learn to walk. Nelson Mandela said, money won't create success, the freedom to make it will. And I want to finish with his wise words.
I have walked a long walk to freedom. It has been a lonely road, and it is not over yet.
It's a long journey, and it's a lifetime journey. And we want to welcome you on that journey. Whether you are a beginner and you're in the E quadrant, whether you're an intermediate and you're in the S quadrant, whether you're advanced and you're in the B quadrant, everyone has their personalized story that they are trying to solve for them and their family. And really what I believe, and what Shad has shared so eloquently with the little arrow, is that's your goal. And hopefully tonight, in 60 minutes, we've shared with you our own life experiences of how you can hack your way to be able to do this so that it doesn't take you 20 plus years yourself. And so to remind you of those next steps, go along, sign up to the launch of the Wealth University. Everything we've shared tonight is going to be available to people on that launch. If you are part of the inner circle, watch out for your emails. Go and KYC. There's good deals coming. I'm warning you. I came from the investment committee today. There's 3 very good deals coming. 2 commercial opportunities, another structured note. So really, it's really quite exciting. So make sure that you're ready for when those deals come. And for those of you that truly want to become a wealth hacker, we are going to even be making T-shirts for those that will be part of the community. Because what is it all about? It's about being part of a community and a brand and working together. So we're actually going to run a competition where people can help design a great T-shirts, etc. So that's all from me. I know tonight was a lot of financial stuff. I ended off with a bit of humor and a couple of stories and wise words from Nelson Mandela. Lee, I think we're pretty much done. What I would like to do is firstly thank Chad very much for his time and yourself. I'm not sure if there's any questions that anyone's got. I really wanted us to try and finish the content by the 60 minutes, and then we can run if there's any questions. Reminding everyone, it is Wealthy Wednesday, and they can invest on the platform tonight for $100.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. Thank you, Chad. We really do appreciate your time and your energy. We love how aligned everyone is on this call with all those books with Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And just to chime in there, we also gave the books to our boys. I think we did it a little bit too early because Dylan came through with it and wanted to draw in it, and he was about to draw. But the thought was there, so I think we were all good. But you have to start somewhere. So I echo what both Chad and Scott have said. Just start anywhere and just get the process going, because it will build on that. So Scott, in the questions, there wasn't really questions directly related to the chat tonight. We've answered most of that as you went through your presentation, but we did have a question from Gavin about seeing the mobile university. How close are we getting a mobile Wealth Migrate app?
Great question, Gavin. We're starting with the whole community and engagement. Again, I highly recommend you go watch that video that we've got in there around how it's going to work. It's got gamification, it's got cryptocurrency, so as to entice, within a platform, etc. So it's really quite exciting how that's going to work. With time, we will be evolving, and according to our tech stack rank, the idea is to complete that in 2022, so that ultimately we can launch Wealth Create. And if you remember Wealth Create, the idea was for people to invest literally from $1. But obviously we would have to have the mobile tech solution working for that. So yeah, really to answer your question, one step at a time. Wealth University is going mobile. We still find at the moment, the majority of our investors, literally 80% plus, are going through their laptops or tablets, etc. So we don't find a huge amount of need for it from investors. We do think the engagement platform on the Wealth University will make a big difference. But we are fully aware that as we drop the minimums, remember that we've just dropped the minimums from $1,000 to $100 for the last 2 weeks. The more we do that, it's got to be mobile. And we're fully aware of that, and it's very much part of the plan.
Simrit, you asked how you could get hold of the Freedom Calculator. I think Scott did cover that. So please sign up to the early access of the Wealth University so that they can share with you on how you can get your hands on that. And then we do have a question in the Q&A box from Jay. Your company deposits and reinvestments, advantages and disadvantages of only holding your freedom amount as personal assets or putting the rest as company or foundation holdings?
Sure, Jay, if I understand your question correctly, it's quite a detailed question because it's really around structuring. And if I understand what you're saying, you're asking, do you put it in your personal name or do you hold it in a structure? Is that, Chad and Lee, is that what you're hearing from that question? And I think there's no one size fits all. So on a webinar, it's very hard to kind of give guidance. I know if you looked at my portfolio, and I just did it live for you, I've got in my personal name, I've got a company structure through Europe. I've got one through America, and I've also got one through the Seychelles. Now, I'm not saying you should copy me, because if I've learned one thing, bloody structuring people have taken a lot of money off me in the years. And so I can tell you what doesn't work better than what I can tell you does work. But there are reasons for the different structures in different countries and bank accounts, etc. I tend to like to live on the basis of Ray Dalio, which is about diversification. And so for me, not only diversifying across countries, currencies, assets, and partners, I'd go as far as to say sort of diversifying across banks as well. Because we had an interesting situation just this last month where we had a problem with our UK bank, and all our money was tied up in our UK bank. And I as an entrepreneur, will never get caught out like that again, where you got it separated. So I don't know, Jay, if I've answered your question. I would highly recommend talking to someone that can help you with tax and structuring, depending on the country you're in. However, please don't be like the person that I know Chad and Andrew and I met them in March last year, where they hadn't done anything for 7 years because they were so worried about tax and structuring, and they'd sat on their inheritance from their father or their mother for 7 years and done nothing. Now, when you think about the opportunity cost, the devaluation of currency and everything, that's far worse than if they'd made a mistake in terms of tax and structuring. So, my attitude is, particularly if you're starting small, start in your own name. And, we do have a webinar coming up on let me get the date right here quickly, the 18th of May on tax and structuring. So come and learn from someone who's far more intelligent than me about that.
Thanks for the answer, Scott. That looks like it was all the questions. I'd just like to post here a quote that Ian Hawthorne popped into the chat, and just say that cash is king and cash flow is oxygen. I absolutely love that, because I think it is definitely true and to the point. Scott has mentioned, yeah?
I just want to say before we close out, if people have any ideas what they'd like to see within the kind of Wealth University 5.0, or share it with people, please let us know. We're an active community, and the more we give feedback, a classic example is what Chad did. He went and invested with Andrew, found a product, came and said, hey, why don't we put this on the platform? I mean, that's really at a high level. We're playing at the strategic partner level, but it can be as simple as, hey, I'd like to do something on tax and structuring, as per the question from Jay, etc. So we're always looking to add value, and the best way to do that is through engagement. And then equally, with where the world is and the complexity and the challenges in the world at the moment, I think the more we can share this with other people, the more we can empower them.
Absolutely. Thank you, Scott. Just for everyone, Scott has mentioned a few of our upcoming webinars that are in process. Communication around our different webinars, including the tax and structure one and the Wealth University one, will be sent out during the next couple of days. So please look out for the posts on our various groups, as well as...
I know them all by heart if you want me to tell you. So on the 11th, we've got how to invest offshore. On the 18th, it's how to do tax and structuring. On the 26th, it's compliance and the investment committee and due diligence and regulation and all that. So these are all in May. On the 27th, we've got the Wealth University 5.0 launch. And if you're a new investor, a beginner, then on the 20th of May, we've got a how to get started, which by the way, new doesn't mean you haven't invested before. That means you want to learn how to use the platform, get your KYC done, etc., and get started. So those are all the webinars that are coming live this month. Oh, and we've got the Kalon webinar, the 12J on the 13th of May. So busy this month.
Yeah, we are very busy this month, jam-packing full of value before we roll into the second half of the year. So,
well, and we got the live events, next month as well. So live in Cape Town in the first week of June, Joburg the second week of June, and Durban the third week of June. So just again, watch your diaries. These dates are going to be coming thick and fast.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there will be a lot of communication that is going to be going out in the next couple of weeks around all our different webinars and also our live events. So please do have a look. If you are not receiving them for any reason, please reach out to your wealth consultants or to myself or Scott. We are happy to assist with further information on that. To Chad, thank you very much for your time and for sharing with our community. We really do value it.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you.
And Scott, thank you once again. I am very pleased that your internet held with the magic tape that you managed to work between your various laptops and your mobile. I hope that they have your fiber restored to Thiessen Island soon, and everything is go from there. But to our community, our most valued members, thank you very much for spending the last hour and 15 minutes with us. I know that there was a lot of information shared. We will be posting the recording via email and also on our groups. Please do feel free to share this with anyone that you feel can have value, as we love to share our knowledge and really empower everyone to create the future that they would want for themselves and for their family. So on that note, thank you very much, everybody. We look forward to sharing with you through our various webinars in May and look forward to seeing you on our next Wealthy Wednesday in June. So wherever you are, take care and be blessed. Goodbye, everybody.
Cheers. Thank you.